If there is one question in interviews that I really dislike, it's the question of what's your favorite game of all time? Hello, I'm Sam Lake. I'm here today to talk about games with BAFTA. One game recently that I have admired a lot, Sam Barlow's IMMORTALITY. And he has now done multiple games using live-action video content, which in itself is very brave, I feel, but also stands out. And then finding ways to bring interactivity to it, which he has done in various ways. I'm impressed by that, and I admire the courage in it. I think that IMMORTALITY was a great game in that. The next game I'm planning to play is Baldur's Gate 3, but I can't play it yet because we are on the final stretch of getting Alan Wake 2 done, and right at the moment that's the only game I'm playing.
Take a week off specifically for Baldur's.
Yeah, or maybe 2. Favorite narrative in a game, I would have to go back to say Planescape Torment. There is the mystery of the amnesia, but also a rich role-playing game world that has just a very unique, strong style, and it's very cohesive at what it is. Actually, a more recent example, a very similar example, I feel, is Disco Elysium. It's just very confidently and boldly its own thing. The world, the characters, like even all the role-playing mechanics, the different abilities, the tone and the identity of the whole thing is so strong. Yeah, that among my favorites, definitely. A quote from a game that has stuck with me, I would have to go with "Would You Kindly" from BioShock. It's really well done and kind of like impressive how the different levels and layers of storytelling, but also kind of in a strange way, the idea of interactivity come together in that kind of trigger, hypnotic phrase that keeps thrown in there, and then suddenly looking back, kind of everything comes together with that. Favorite character in a game could be the nameless one from Planescape, could be Mort, the sidekick floating, talking skull, could be Harry from Disco Elysium, just, yeah, a lovable character, clearly. But maybe I'll just go and say the G-Man from Half-Life, a total mystery.
Wake up and smell the ashes.
I started playing computer games with my Commodore 64. I can't really remember what the first game was. There must have been 100 games that I loved and kept playing on. The first game that, looking back, that made a strong impression was Ultima 2. That suddenly just was something so impressive as an idea of containing a whole world inside the game that you could go and explore. If there is one question in interviews that I really dislike, it's the question of what's your favorite game of all time, because it's a really hard question to answer. There are just so many great games along the way, and it does change, and you know, when growing up and playing games, there were times where something really made an impression and a lasting impression. But then, of course, you know, new games come about. I don't know, like I'll go back to my earlier thing, the Ultimate series as games. Just growing up, there were many years where I was just a huge fan of that. A favorite mechanic from game, I actually go all the way to really basic thing, which is just traversal. like moving in the world. Very easily we just forget how incredible it is. And also, like, it's not like it's standing still, sorry about the pun, it's been evolving a lot. And how the animation systems work, you know, especially a third-person game I'm talking about. You know, how fluid it is these days. Obviously then, you know, if you think about superhero games like Spider-Man, like what an amazing feeling it is just moving across the world. But even in a normal game where you just walk and run and it's well done and responsive, you know, just the fact that you are in this world and you are moving about and kind of through that experiencing the world, that's a very basic thing, but it's a big part of what makes video games magical. Alan Wake, maybe more than any game that Remedy has made, really was a long journey finding our way to it. We went through many different concepts before we landed with Alan Wake, and out of all of these different concepts, some bits and pieces stayed with us. Like early on, we were looking at the idea of a day and night cycle. And that already was something that light and darkness came from that idea. We really had nothing else that makes Alan Wake at that point. But that stuck with us. Then a couple of steps forward, there was just a strong feel of, you know, small town Americana as a setting. And there I was already tapping into ideas of Stephen King novels and Twin Peaks. But we still didn't have the character at that point. And then only kind of couple of steps forward, with this strong feel of wanting to have, in an action game, a character who is not a professional action hero. That kind of led us to the idea of Ryder as a character. And then I feel we started to have the whole package of what makes Alan Wake together.
Did he always have the multi-layered clothes?
For Alan Wake, as part of the exploration, we went through several versions of the outfit. The idea that it's fall time in the Pacific Northwest was that, well, he should be wearing enough so that it's convincing, like him coming and having an adventure outdoors. But we had some exploration. We put out some of those early concepts and concept shots, and the outfit was quite different early on from what we landed with. I am really proud of all the games that we have done at Remedy. If I try to identify specific things in them that makes me really proud, one is, and this goes all the way back to Max Payne, just the idea of we can do a proper story and storytelling in the context of an action game, which back then was not a given at all. And that really, to me, is the beginning of the journey for Remedy games as they are seen today. But then also the constant exploration on different methods and different mediums of storytelling within these games, you know, using different mediums like graphic novels and pages of a novel, and always the voiceover narration, and these days more and more live action, but music as well, like and how to piece it together and how to use these different elements. That's something that is very close to my heart and I feel proud of. My ideal game would be an adventure game. Obviously, that's a fluid concept these days, but something that focuses on exploration and interaction with other characters. ideal game is rather short, the length of your indie game in many cases, and that just comes from the fact that you know, constantly running out of time. A game that I could sit down and spend half a day on a weekend and play it from the beginning to the end. And something that like stylization and tone are really important to me. That's something that has a unique, strong stylization and tone. I keep on being inspired in games by the fact that games can be so many things, and you know, going all the way back to text adventures or early role-playing games with just kind of symbols marking and creating the world, all the way to this day of, you know, breathtaking visuals in the graphics. The fact that the game mechanics, and with the game mechanics, the world building and storytelling in them can be successfully done in so many different ways. That is really impressive and talks about the power of video games overall. We are still a relatively young art form, and I think of games as an art form. It keeps on being interesting and exciting. We are not really kind of molded or set in place. We keep changing. The games keep changing. We keep inventing new things, and that makes it always exciting. Also, because we have all of these other art forms that came before, I've always seen them as fair game to be used inside video games. And that kind of like gives interesting ideas as a playing field for what we can do for world building. Just the idea of it being interactive. And as a creator, it means that you will need to give away some of the control in creating it. But I feel what we get back in return is audience who is really vested and engaged with the games that we create.